Hello and welcome back. As always, my name is Laser and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the Monk and the Sunwuko Wave of Light build. Currently this is considered the best build, as in not necessarily the most fun to play or whatever, but it's simply the build that pushed the furthest in Greater Rifts. Now there were some changes to this Sunwuko build simply because we didn't get enough survivability. The Monk was dying way too easily, so let me show you exactly what changed. We're gonna kind of glance over the entire build. So first of all, let's talk about gear. Yes, we are still using Tsokirin gaze for our helmet because we need a wave of light to be cast on ranged. Again, we want to stay away from our target and make the best use we can out of Zay's Vengeance. So this one is a must. Of course, it increases also your wave of light damage. And again, this is not the legendary affix. As you can see, 140% there. It can go up to 150%, so we gotta use this helmet. As for the Sunwuko set itself, we are reusing 5 pieces and we're socketing in the cube ring of Royal Grandeur. The chest, ideally one Dex Vitality, reduces damages from elites, and of course, as with most monk builds, you want secondary resistances because we are gonna be using Harmony. As for sockets, as you can see, we changed out the resource cost reduction on the head and we socketed in reduces cooldown of all skills by 12.5%. So out with the yellow/orange gem, in with the blue. As for shoulders, these are not ideal shoulders, but again you want reduced cooldown of all skills because essentially this is what happened. We socketed out the resource cost reduction and we implemented cooldown reduction so we can keep Epiphany up as much as we can, and we're gonna talk about that a bit later. We're gonna be using the neck from the Sunwuko as well. Ideally what you want is critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and fire skill damage, and of course, as always, secondary resistances so you can make the best use of Harmony. I cannot stress this enough because I've seen most monks just simply flat out ignore this. It gives you good survivability. For the bracers, the same Pinto's Pride, ideally again, fire skills 20%, Dex Vital, critical hit chance as much as you can, which is 6. And I got on this one, reduces damage from ranged attacks by 6%, which isn't bad as a secondary, but again, ideally you want resistances. For the belt, this is not the belt's belt, this is a commodity belt I'm using, Kyoshiro's Soul. Now this one, Sweeping Wind gains 2 stacks every second. It does not deal damage to enemies. I simply use this one because sometimes I forget to reactivate Sweeping Wind, which will mean death. Which will mean death because of the first set bonus of Sunwuko's Soul. For the pants, ideally Dex Vitality Armor, and of course again secondary resistances. I'm telling you about ideal gear. Okay, very few people get full ideal gear, but you get the point. Now the ideal belt you want to be using for this one, if you're not lazy or you actually pay attention, not like me, is of course the Witching Hour. That one will give you some increased critical hit damage and attack speed. The attack speed is not essential to the build, not really, but the critical hit damage would help out a lot, so again, best in slot is Witching Hour. For the rings, like I said before, we needed more survivability, so now we have a unity. Ideal unity will be critical hit chance, critical hit damage. Of course, the damage against elites, you cannot get rid of that, and of course, secondary resistances. And for the second ring, we have Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. Yes, we did drop Convention of Elements. This one has attack speed, critical hit chance, and reduces cooldown of all skills. Again, I stress out, you need good cooldown reduction, and of course, secondary resistances as well. Why is all this cooldown reduction for? I will explain just a tad later. For the boots, again, we need the crudest boots simply because we want 2 air allies with us to buff up our spirit regeneration, and of course then we're going to be able to activate Spirit Ally and use it kind of like a spirit potion. Again, decent cooldown, especially considering how much cooldown of all skills we are using right now. For the weapons, Kyoshiro's Blade is mandatory, and so is the Vengeful Wind. The Vengeful Wind, the main thing about this one is to get some cooldown reduction on it, and of course the max stacking count of Sweeping Wind needs to be increased by 7, not 6, because we're losing 1000 damage on Wave of Light every time we do not have a stack. So you want it ideally again with 7 stacks. It can roll between 6 and 7. It depends on what kind of luck you got. Kyoshiro's Blade increases the damage of Wave of Light because this is what we're perma spamming all the time, as you can see. And the initial impact of Wave of Light, it hits 3 or fewer enemies. The damage is increased by 250% max. Mine has 242, and again on this one you would want some cooldown reduction, but I'm still working on the build. Of course, this is not ideal gear. So let's go over the actual build. We got Wave of Light with Explosive Light. Again, this is a fire skill. This is the most amount of damage. This is your bread and butter, and this is what you're gonna be spamming like crazy. And Epiphany shows up in the build instead of the builder. which was Wave of Light if I remember correctly. Epiphany will grant us the damage mitigation we need to stay alive in higher levels of Greater Rifts. That's why we're using Desert Shroud as a rune. Infuse yourself with sand, reduces damage taken by 50%. Now again, this is what the cooldown reduction is for, and this is what Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac is for. While doing normal mobs, you don't necessarily need to have Epiphany up all the time, and it doesn't really matter how much cooldown reduction you're gonna get, you're still not gonna get like 100% up on Epiphany, which is why we're using Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. While you're doing the final boss, the Rift Guardian and all whatnot, you're gonna continually spam Wave of Light. You are gonna be allowed to do that, and that will keep bringing down Epiphany's cooldown to the point where you are going to be able to have it 100% up, as you will see in this video, ideally at the end of the Greater Rift. So yeah, with the Ring of the Zodiac and with all the resource cooldown of all skills implemented into the gear, you're going to be able to keep up Epiphany 100% up on the boss, which again gives you some spirit regeneration as well, so you're never really going to run out of spirit. Sweeping Wind with Inner Storm, we're using this one again for the spirit generation. We need that spirit generation. Dashing Strike with the Blinding Speed, of course this provides escape. This is a huge survival cooldown actually, and you're going to be able to spam it a whole lot more often. Just keep in mind that Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac will only bring the cooldown down of one of your skills. So ideally you want to keep this off cooldown where you're doing the boss, so it keeps reducing the cooldown of Epiphany. Mystic Ally with Air Ally, again the same reason as always, we need that spirit generation, and of course Mantra of Salvation with agility for the added dodge and resist to all. For the passive, Near Death Experience is not necessarily 100% a must-have. I do use this one because we are talking about hardcore here, okay, not softcore. Here actually dying and doing bad is punished, so we need to keep Near Death Experience as a failsafe. Seize the Initiative, again we are gonna get a lot of attack speed, and with more attack speed on this one we're gonna be able to bring the cooldown of Epiphany down even faster because of Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. Harmony is a must-have in most monk builds, which is why on your gear you're gonna try to have secondary resistance like this one, lightning resistance. 40% of that is gonna go to your all resist. As for Kanai's Cube, you have a little bit of free room to play here. There's no question about Incense Torch of the Grand Temple, this you must have, but in the armor slot you can go for a couple of things. For example, if you wish to do so, you can wear a Witching Hour and put Kiyoshiro's Soul in the armor section, if you so desire. Now I'm using a Cinder Coat because this one will bring the resource cost of my fire skills down by 30%, and the one skill that I'm spamming like crazy is Wave of Life with Explosive Light. Being a fire rune makes it a fire skill, so that will bring my resource cost down. Now again, this is not necessarily the only way to play this build, this is just what I found makes most sense to me. In the jewelry socket, of course, we're gonna use a Ring of Royal Grandeur because we are only using 5 pieces of Sunwuko and we need a 6-hit bonus, otherwise this build will simply not work. And well, that's pretty much it to the build. Again, more survivability was needed, and the way you get that is with the Unity, and of course on the follower you will have a Unity and the Immortal Templar Relic. And the second, the third actually big source of mitigation will be Epiphany, and you're gonna be able to keep this one up 100% of the time on bosses. During trash mobs, it really depends on how hard you're pushing, if you have to spend a lot on an elite pack or not. What you're seeing on the screen right now is a Greater Rift level 80, which wasn't really much of an issue, as you can see. And well, that's pretty much it to the build. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. As always, my name has been Leyzar. If I missed something, if I forgot to mention something, I apologize. I'm nowhere near at being an expert. But currently, I am still sitting in top 400 monks, hardcore monks, seasonal AU. Thank you guys for watching once again. Like, favorite channel, subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
It is not ready yet.